Hey, class. So I just wanted to show you, because we have an essay coming up, the difference between a successful compare contrast or cause and effect essay um, and an unsuccessful essay. So I'm going to go through really quickly, but it could be helpful. So again, just to recap for MLA format, you can see that here. I'm going to show you the successful example first. You can see up here is the header, and the way I got there was double click on the top, um, and then this option will pop up, and you'll see it'll allow you to make a header. And so you go over here to page number, and then you go to top of the page, and then it'll be on the right side. So when you're done with that, it's probably going to give you the wrong format. So make sure that you then change it to Times New Roman font. Um, so that's here, Times New Roman 12-point font. I think for some reason it gives you like Courier or something like that. And then to get out of it, you just double click, and then this header will be there all the time. It'll change page numbers for you, and you don't have to worry about it, right? So again, MLA format. You have the name. This is not a real name. You have the professor, you have the class, and then you have the date written like this in MLA format. And again, the title is here. It looks strange because it's just double space all the way through. So it almost looks like it's part of the essay itself. But this is actually the way that you set up your MLA format essay. And so if you highlight a bit of it and then you go to format, paragraph, you'll see that the spacing before is 0 point, after is 0 point, line spacing double. That's what you want to see. So there you go. Perfect. And so this is the title, and then I'm going to post this on Canvas. So this is the successful essay example, and on the same document, at the end of this, I put the unsuccessful example. But you can see from the first sentence here, my vision became warped just moments after I ended my phone call. Interesting, right? I mean, it sort of gets you into the essay. I don't really have any idea what the essay is going to be about, except for the title, "The Emotional Downfall of Owning a Pet." Pretty intriguing, right? Usually you hear about pets bringing joy and happiness, but this author decided that they were going to argue, and the key word there is argue, because every essay in this class is going to be an argument. They were going to argue that there's actually emotional pitfalls to owning a pet, which is interesting. I think that's an interesting way to set up a cause and effect essay, which I think this is. And so they start to tell this story about the phone call, right? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it gets down to this thesis statement. And I want to preface this by saying that this is a successful essay, but it's not a perfect essay. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for successful use of the things that we're learning in this class. So that's bold first sentences, full paragraphs, argument, great thesis statement, documentation, quote use, and things like that. So you see we get down to this thesis statement: owning a pet will not make you happier, but instead lead you down a spiraling hole of negative emotions. That's quite an argument, right? You know it's an argument because there's a certain set of people who will argue back with it, right? You sort of read this and you get this reaction like, I don't hear that very much. But if this person can successfully defend this thesis statement, then they're fine, right? So it doesn't matter what you argue. You can argue anything you want as long as you can defend it. So when I say it's not a perfect paper, there's a grammar error in this statement, right? Owning a pet will not make you happier, but instead will right? There's a sort of a continuity problem there. And so I can find some grammar mistakes in essays, and that's fine. Either it's just a mistake, maybe it's something you didn't know, and I don't grade too hard on grammar. I'm really looking for structure. So I think that's one of the main stressors during when students write essays, is that they're so stressed out about sentence structure and grammar that they kind of mess up the real structure that I'm looking for, which is the structure of argument, the structure of paragraph. So when you make your draft, you don't have to make a perfect draft on the first go around. But what I expect you to do is then go through and read your essay aloud, where you will catch a lot of these grammar errors and structure errors. So make sure you give yourself enough time to go through and read it aloud. So here's one. I'm just going to go through one paragraph, and then we'll go to the unsuccessful. I should have felt calm having my dog by my side, but my stress shot through the roof with just the presence of him in the room. So you can see that this person, this author, is going straight into the defense of this thesis statement, right? Because if this thesis statement is the entire essay, then of course every paragraph that they create is going to have to be a defense of this essay, this thesis statement, this argument. And so they're doing a good job so far because, one, this is an interesting sentence, right? It's a topic sentence. So I expect that the rest of this paragraph will follow what this topic sentence says. And I have a feeling that this author is going to then go ahead and explain this sentence, right? So coming home from school, I would let my dog in the house just after setting my things down. Getting ready to start an assignment, I would immediately have to pause to let my dog back out again. So now we're sort of getting an idea why that there was stress, right, with this pet. So now I'm starting to see, okay, so here's a little personal story that's defending this thesis. Great. However, this author decided that maybe a personal story isn't the most convincing thing right now, so they're going to back up this personal story with psychologist Leslie DeMello. And here again I see another mistake. So psychologist Leslie DeMello, in her journal, she didn't write the whole journal, right? So this would be article, right? So there's another mistake. Again, not a huge deal. These are mistakes that happen. If I see a mistake like that, I'm not going to take 10 points off. I'm just going to note it, and then I'll probably make a little note in the comment section. So these mistakes are not deadly. They are just mistakes that beginning writers do all the time. So it's not a huge deal. And so then this person decides to use an article. So in an experiment, DeMello measured the heart rates of people completing a time task and with and without an animal present in the room, which is interesting. So that they decided that their personal story was not enough. They used this study from a peer-reviewed journal, a valid source, right? Which is one of the criteria for this essay, is you either use the articles that are in your book, or you use a peer-reviewed journal from our library database, which it will be in another video. So there we go. And so they use this quote, meant the quote right here, and then after the quote, they explain what that quote means. What DeMello means is that blah, 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 blah. And so they turn into layman's terms so that everyone can understand it. Maybe if there's jargon, maybe if there are statistics, you want to explain it. You want to put the quote back into your own words, right? And then this author goes back and ties this quote back to the thesis. So even if your pet was well behaved, that doesn't exclude you from having to let it out every so often, making sure it's fed and not bored. It's almost as if you've become the one to ensure that your pet is staying happy and not the other way around. This all comes boiling down to a fat reminder that owning a pet is not going to provide you with plain happy feelings, but simply be there to enhance your negative emotion, stress being one of them. So that, again, this person has a problem with fragment sentences, right? This is not a sentence right here. And so here, probably on the notes, I'll say, watch your fragment sentence, and then I'll maybe provide an example of what an independent clause. However, that does not mean that the structure of this paragraph is off in any way. This is exactly how I want you to structure paragraphs. It starts with a bold sentence, then it gets more specific. I want you to explain this bold sentence, and they do a really good job with that. And then if you think it, and it's just common sense, if you think, hey, maybe they need a valid source to help me back up this point that I just made, go ahead and use a quote, use a paraphrase, use a statistic, and dot it. And then, of course, tie it back to your thesis, just like we learned proper paragraph structure. And so this author does the same. They use another study from a different journal. Then they use another personal story backed up by another study. And so they do a really good job at sort of stating their argument and then backing it with peer-reviewed research, right? And so that's what I want you to do. And one of the main things is to get argument out of this prompt. So that's going to be the hardest thing. And so if you want to use statements, you probably should. Let's look at the unsuccessful paper. These are more fun. I forgot to talk about the works cited, but these are the sources this author used, right? Works cited looks like this. These are hanging indents. Do this, you just go over to format, paragraph, and then here you have special, and then you have thesis, first line hanging, you go to hanging, and then it puts it into this format right here. And basically this is just so when I'm looking through your paper, whoever's reading your paper, you have a source, Brown, then you look down here and right away you see Brown. So like all this stuff is over here, but the name really pops out. This is what's called works cited. This is page 6, but it doesn't count as page 6. This does not count in your essay. This is just extra, but it's a necessary extra. So here we go, 3 sources. All here, alphabetized, perfect. Here, another fake name, indoor sports and outdoor sports. Right away, I can tell, okay, not the most imaginative title. And then here I put, this is edition, unsuccessful essay example. He did not write that himself. I can already tell that I've read so many essays, I can already tell that this is not going to be a good essay because this first paragraph is minimal, right? It almost looks there's no heart involved with this first paragraph. Many people prefer indoor sports instead of outdoor sports. That's the first sentence. This is the sentence that's supposed to get me involved with this essay. It's supposed to be imaginative. It's supposed to be beautiful. And then there's this. Right? And so if we go back here and successful essay, my vision became warped just moments after I ended my call. Dun, dun, dun. So this sounds like a novel that I want to keep reading. It sounds like some dude just sat down and it was like, oh shit, I have to write an essay. Many people prefer indoor sports instead of outdoor sports. Hey, that's not a lie. I'm not saying it's a lie, I'm just saying it's really boring. So, now I know that I'm in for a ride when I read this essay, because I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to read hundreds more of these sentences. indoor sports are better for many reasons. So this is a compare contrast, but this person now I know is going to be writing one of those compare and contrast that's like this thing better than this thing, and here's why. And that's not what I want, right? So let's look at the thesis. Many people also choose outdoor sports because they prefer the time of the year of that sport, don't mind the weather, and could care less about if their games are set in schedule. There's no argument there, right? You're supposed to be presenting your argument, right? This is presenting the argument of many people, but like, where's the author? You're supposed to be defending your thesis, and you can't because you're just putting everything onto other people, right? So there's no argument here. The author is not in here at all. And what I want you to do for this essay is to present your argument. So here we go. Let's see. So first we have indoor sports, the sentence of the second paragraph. Indoor sports are going to happen at the scheduled time because there's never a game due to weather, like most outdoor sports get rained out, or the weather is too bad to play in the conditions. So when I was talking about grammar errors, right, and I said it's every now and then, fine, do some grammar errors, I get it. Here, there are too many to count, and I can't even read the sentence. I'll have to read this sentence 5 times in order to figure means. So this is a case of someone not editing, not proofing. And so really, I want you to, right when you start reading the sentence, figure out very quickly that there's something wrong with it. No one talks like this, right? No one talks like this. And the thing is, I know you can all talk and you carry on conversations. So just keep that in mind when you're writing. Just write like you talk. You don't have to get academic when you're writing these essays. You don't have to think that this is a cool essay. Just write. The only point of this is to communicate your argument and to back argument. You do it all the time. You argue all the time. If you're arguing with your parent, right? You state your argument, and your parents are like, what are you talking about? But then you have all these reasons about why your argument is true, right? And then maybe you'll back it up. Well, Dr. So-and-so said this, and that's why I'm right. It's the same idea, except for in an essay. So just read a little bit when you're writing, and just pretend that you're arguing with someone who's in front of you. So here we go. So this first sentence makes 0 sense. It's not backing up an argument because there is no argument. So without this thesis, you've set yourself up for disaster, because the rest of the essay, what are you going to be defending? Nothing if there's no argument. So this person, according to an article on Sport Advisory. I don't know what Sport Advisory. This is not I don't understand what that is. I don't know what that is. But then do a piece of documentation here, sportadvisory.com. So that's not a valid source, right? It's a .com. It's not from our database. It's not from our book. So this person failed this part because this is just .com, and we're not using .coms in this class. Nothing on a .com can give you information that's valid. We're just going to pretend that's true. Of course, there are exceptions. However, as you start to move up in your English classes, or the classes where there's a heavy load of writing, you're going to be using peer-reviewed journals. So I want to get you used to that, so that you sort of get these .coms out of your system, because a lot of them are paid for by advertising, and the bias seeps in there, whereas peer-reviewed journals, they take a lot of great care to make sure the information is accurate, and that's what we're looking for to back up arguments, right? So here, this sets up the paragraph in an okay way. I mean, I can see they're sort of back up their argument, but they don't really have an argument. So it sort of gets a little strange to craft an essay that doesn't have an argument, and arguments within the essay. Indoor facilities maintenance. So this is a very straight up sort of like, this is is better than not what I want you to do for this essay. So if we look back at this thesis over here, successful paper, this is the argument. Owning a pet will lead you down a spiraling hole of negative emotions, right? And so you can see the difference between these two thesis statements. This one is, many people also choose outdoor sports because time of year of that sport, don't mind the weather, and could care less about if their games are set in schedule. And so this is basically a list, and I don't want you to do these list thesis statements because they end up being really boring. So the first thing this person's going to talk about is the time of that sport. The second thing they're going to talk about is the weather. And the third thing is they less about if their games are set in schedule. I have no idea what that means. I don't play sports. Maybe it's because it doesn't make any sense. I have no idea. But if there are things that are unclear in your thesis, you have to take care of them. This should be super clear. There should be no about what your thesis means, right? You have to make it as concise and clear as possible. The reader won't be confused, because this essentially is telling the reader, this is what my paper is about. This is the thing I'm going to defend. So yeah, and so they keep going. Mistakes, sources that aren't valid. Here's a source called Slingboard, which is just like a chat message board or something from slingboarding.com. Not a valid source, right? Go down, it's painfully long, and then we come down to the cited advisory sports. Nope, not valid. So there we go. Not a great essay, and I think the formatting might be off as well. Sorry, I'm going back and forth here. So let's just because I've seen a lot of these essays, I know that this is not formatted right. So I can see all these spaces. There's extra spaces here. There's extra spaces here. There's extra spaces here. So I'm going to go into format. I'm going to go into paragraph. Then I am going to see, here's before 0 point. That's fine. But then after point. So that has to go down to 0. Double point. Okay. Then you'll see that it'll change the formatting, and then it'll look okay. And so we don't need this 9 to 1020. And there we go. So there's the difference. I'm going to put these on the site. Get them. And if you have any questions,